Deathblod. Deathblod. Deathblod.
Hello, this is Hatskrømt and you're listening to Deathblow Podcast.
Hello dark creatures, this is me Dark L and welcome to another episode of Deathblow Podcast. Subscribe, like and share my episodes and click on the bell to receive more news. Instagram, Facebook and TikTok to more videos and contents. Spotify and Apple Podcast for the audio version to listen to everywhere. Today I present you a second Norwegian band that I had the pleasure to interview, and this band is called Hatskrømt. Yeah, I know, very hard to pronounce, but easy to capture the darkness of many people. Watch now the rest of the interview. Welcome,
Hello.
Sam.
How are you?
I'm fine. What about you?
I'm great, thanks.
So, we are today with Sam, and welcome to Deathblow Podcast. So, welcome again.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
So, your band has a particular name, because I'm not able to pronounce myself. But I will try right now. Hatskrømt?
That's really good. Hatskrømt. So
Okay.
that's, you came as close as possible.
Okay.
That's really good.
So, I know a little bit of Norwegian. That little correct.
Yeah. So this word is a made-up word. It's a combination of two Norwegian words. So skrømt means ghost or wraith, and hat is hate.
But how it started Hatskrømt?
Now Hatskrømt started. I am the vocalist of a band called Blodknoke as well, which is a black and crust punk band. So Blodknoke is, we have several members which all have individual monikers or names, and my name as a vocalist of Blodknoke is Hatskrømt. So when I decided to make my solo music, my solo albums, I just took the name from that band, since I am a one-man black metal band.
You come from Norway, from Ålesund. Is there a scene there, or is it more concentrated in the capital Oslo?
It's definitely more concentrated in the capital. I myself am from the capital, but I moved here to Ålesund. So Ålesund is a pretty small port town in Norway. It's not that big. You can cross the whole city in 15 minutes. But we do actually have some islands outside of Ålesund where suddenly now death metal is thriving for some reason. So there is a band from Vigra, which is an island outside of Ålesund, who is like consisting of, I think, 19-year-olds who just got a gig for like the biggest festival in Norway, Tons of Rock, to play in front of 10,000 people, and they usually play before 30 here in Ålesund.
So I think that there is even a little scene, but it is not equivalent like the Oslo scene.
Definitely not. In Oslo, we are playing, my band, we're playing in Oslo next week. And then we're playing a good venue. There's going to be a lot of people, but if I did the same here, we would get, I think, less than 10% of the people that would come to a regular Oslo gig.
And this new album has a title in Latin, Codex Serpentis. What does it mean, and how did you get inspiration for this album?
Well, I don't speak Latin myself, but I tried, to read upon phrases and translate the idea that I had in my head for an album. And Codex Serpentis, the law of the snake, right? I guess you know, since you're Italian, no more than I do of the Latin. But the album is about shadow government and impending doom, as we see with the world right now, and the world is ending for the third time, right? So the inspiration behind the album is both the political situation that we are in now, and also the classic 90s Mayhem, Marduk sound, which I am really, really fond of.
And what can you say more about this record? For example, you took inspiration from Latin language. Despite you are Norwegian, you find this difficult to understand and to speak Latin?
Well, yeah, actually, when I was a kid, long before I long before I decided to not partake in any religious stuff, because I don't like religion at all. I am very anti-religion. But I grew up in a Catholic church, and we did have some Latin liturgy read to us when we were kids. So I do know some Latin phrases, lucida sidera, and etc., etc. But, and non serviam, of course, from the devil. But I don't speak Latin on the record. I speak English on the record. It's just a title that is Latin, and I find the Latin language, pretty beautiful and interesting.
You play all the instruments in this record, but have you ever collaborated with any musicians behind the scenes during the recordings?
For the other records I have, not for this one, but I do have other records from before where I collaborated with a guitarist. His name is Chetsor, or in English it would be Flesh Wound. And he's actually my brother, and we started the other band together, but he quit metal and everything. He's not really into that anymore, but or if he ever was, but he got some good riffs in him, so sometimes I can convince him to join me to play. But this time I just wanted to do everything on my own.
So you are the second right now Norwegian black metal band that I interview, so it is amazing to have a second Norwegian black metal band right now here, so I am very glad about this.
It's super nice for us as well, because I know Malum you interviewed last, right?
Yes.
Great guys, and Dutch Prophet is a super cool guy, and they make great music, and it's good for us, underground scene in Norway. There is no exposure in Norway, especially for not a lot for underground black metal. We have the big bands. You have like Mayhem, Satyricon, etc., who get all the big billings, and people, even the hipsters in the street, wear Dark Throne t-shirts, right? But for you to interview smaller bands like us, we really appreciate it, so thank you.
What I like about this composition in this record are the various dissonances and the pauses between guitar and drums, a tribute to Mayhem, because I was noticing this Mayhem tribute in your record. Don't you agree?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, definitely. And it might be too Mayhem wannabe like, but I really wanted to try to make a record that is a big like homage to the Mysteries Dom Satanas, because it's simply just a fucking great record, and I wanted to prove to myself that I was able to make compositions in the vein of the classic true Norwegian black metal scene, and not just necro black metal.
I notice even the name necro black metal, which could be a subgenre of black metal in a way.
Yeah, I do make a lot. I think Codex Serpentis is my 10th release as Hatskrømt overall, and I've done noise stuff, and I've done punk stuff, but I've done a lot of necro black metal. Press the record on the cassette recorder and one take, and not mixing it and stuff. But for this record, I really wanted it to sound good, or as good as you're gonna get just being one man in a room.
Yeah, you said that the tape recorder makes me think a little bit of the 80s, because many people in the 80s were using this tape recorder, so they will press record and everything was working. So are you using that type of stuff?
Not for this record, but I have done before. I have a record out on it should be on YouTube. You probably find it on YouTube, but it's called Necromanisk, and that one is processed. We recorded it to cassette, and also with a record called Skarpretter. And it's true what you say, when you just press record like in the 80s, and you just layer stuff on top of each other and make the saturation of the tape like kind of do the magic for you, then you get something completely different than when you sit down and doing a labor of love and trying to mix out like the best parts and cutting off this and that in the digital way. So Codex Serpentis is definitely a product of time and thinking and going back and fixing stuff. But when it comes to the older releases and the straight 80s style, it was just punch record, do it, But that also leaves some good flaws and some bad flaws to the music, I guess.
Yeah, I think that this is pretty normal, because when you record on the tape recorder, whatever happens during the recording. So it's genuine in a way.
It is, and I think most of the records that, at least that I love, they do have flaws and stuff that's endearing, that you end up loving, right? You sit there and you wait for that guitar to feedback, or the drum to hit the rim instead of the snare, and you're like, oh, I know this part, this is a cool part, I know this. To me, that's a beautiful thing, and I guess to a lot of black metal heads it is as well. And the whole aesthetic of like the noise and the hissing and the saturation, that's something missing in popular music, right? The analog feel.
And lyrically, what is this album about?
Well, as I mentioned, it is about like the coming of the Third World War, the impending doom. And I'm not, I'm a big fan of Marduk and stuff, but I'm not that fond of war. I really am not like a war kind of guy. So I guess opposed to a lot of like the 90s black metal, I really don't want war. And this record is all about, the feeling of impending doom and then the aftermath of a big catastrophe. So I have lines about, walking around in the ashes of the earth and seeing, soldiers looting corpses, and then knowing that you didn't take part in a resistance, or, the way that everything starts with speech, goes into movement. I'm pointing of a scapegoat, rounding up and impounding of weak people, and then it starts, So it's very important to me to, I'm not a political guy, but this album, I kind of am, right? I don't like fascism. I'm not there. I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah, and not even me, but I think that what you're doing is really important to talk about these arguments, because talking about the Third World War, it's a fact that could happen. And everybody are involved then in this conflict. So I think that what you're talking about is so important.
Thank you. And there is one thing to say it, and a lot of black metal fans, they get kind of up in arms the second that you're being political, because black metal is supposed to be very apolitical, and there are some people who claim to be apolitical, and then they're like National Socialists or fucking Nazis or whatever. And I have no business talking to those people, but I really want to make a stand that I am not one of those people. But then again, the problem with black metal, even though I have these lyrics, I'm screaming them, how many people are actually hearing what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Thus, I decided to try on this record to also have not only screamed vocal, but kind of a throaty, throat singing way of trying to push out the words so that you can hear more clearly what I'm saying. But I don't know if it translates that well, but I tried at least.
Oh, it's a very good, you have an amazing voice, I'm a vocalist myself, so I really understand that. So it's very well done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and according to Metal Archives, I was looking around about your band. This is your 10th full-length album in just 2 years. How do you manage to release these albums so frequently?
Well, I have not that much other to do. I play in 2 bands. We go around. No, I play in 3 bands. And with the 2, Hatskrømt has never performed live. But with the 2 other bands I'm in, we perform, I guess, every other week around the country and sometimes in Europe. And when I'm not doing the band stuff, I'm a bartender at night. So all day I work out and I make music. So there's not much to it. So of course there's gonna be some records that have another focus. Like I told you, I've done some pure like noise recordings, which some people find fun, some people think is boring as shit. And I've done some like traditional, just like some riffs and some drums and some screaming, raw black metal necro stuff. But I enjoy making music. That's what I do. So that's why it's 10 releases, I guess.
And the fact about noise is a genre that in a way represent, I don't know if it's correct, Codex Schnitzler. I think that ex-Tangerine Dream member that started this electro music, and then was even make a sort of noise with the cluster band and stuff.
There's a lot of interesting noise from way early with Pierre Schaeffer and the musique concrète, and the way to use everyday objects to make sounds that you didn't expect to hear, right? And you have the akusmatisk, or I don't know how do you say in German, the akusmatische or whatever music, where the sound is hidden, the sound source is hidden, and you don't know what makes the sound. You hear the sound, but it's not a violin you hear playing. What can the sound be? And that's kind of the magic with noise, because you can, for example, make a title, right? Where I say, at the dentist's office, and I could be screeching across a fucking chalkboard, and all you would think about is your teeth hurting. So I think there is something beautiful about noise, because you have all these kind of sounds hidden in this big wall of sound, and the elements you choose to pick out can be so image evoking.
Yeah, it's something that even Euronymous from Mayhem was loving back then, with Klaus Schulze and even Codex Schnitzler and Tangerine Dream. So even Brian Eno, if I know very well, but I don't know the rest of the bands, because I'm very curious about this electronic music. I tried to listen a couple of albums of Codex Schnitzler, but I am not into that type of genre.
Right. I can definitely vouch for electronic music. I really love electronic music. So if you wanted to check out Brian Eno, you could check out Music for Airports, which is like not noise at all. It's very ambient, right? And I think there is a great link between black metal and ambient music from Burzum and a lot of other great, Mortis, and where they do the dungeons and stuff, which is basically ambient music, like in the vein of Brian Eno and early like synth pioneers. So I think there is a lot of there's a gap and a bridge between electronic music and black metal, and that is the ambient and the dungeon synth.
Yeah, I think that many ambient tracks could be even good by Count Grishna Band, which is from the album Philosophem, which is a long title and is basically just 3 notes on the keyboard in a way.
Yeah. But if even the opening track on Philosophem, Dunkelheit, it has the synth passages, bum 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 in the background, and it's pretty ambient, and it's not that far removed from change the guitars into a keyboard and then you have a pure synth track, right? So he has a way. I can't stand that guy, but his music is great, and those things, the inspiration he took from, because he was a techno guy, like you said with Euronymous as well, who was into the neoclassical electronic stuff. I have from way before I started Hatskrømt, I have a degree in classical composition.
Wow.
So this is what I've made music for, I try to write for orchestras and stuff, but I like to scream more than I like the sound of the violin,
What about the album cover of this release?
No, just an homage. This is like the most blatant homage to Mayhem, because Mayhem has a picture of Nidarosdomen, which is like the biggest cathedral in Norway. It's in Trondheim. And I did it myself, took a fucking cathedral, instead of Mayhem, who did it in blue, I did it in red.
Yeah.
just so it's basically just to evoke the image of here I am, I'm trying to do the same thing. It's just an homage. It's not it's not an independent work of art. It's a work of art, or not a work of art. It's an album that is dependent on your knowledge of the Mysteries Dom Satanas to appreciate, I guess.
What are your biggest influences for this album, both musically and even cinematically? Because black metal is very much focused even on the landscapes they create.
I totally agree. And like I said, musically, definitely the Mysteries Dom Satanas. But also, not only that, there has been a lot of, as you know, definitely, and a lot of probably your listeners know, the Norwegian sound has developed quite a bit since the Mysteries. And people say that like bands like Tåke keep it like true or whatever, but Tåke plays the banjo, right? And Tåke has more black and roll influences than any other black metal band in Norway has had, almost. And so I think that the true Norwegian sound is an ever-evolving sound, even though you keep it pretty 90s in the end there. So I have tried to do like some groovy parts and some, something like I got a song there called Rites of the Masters, and it's very inspired by In the Shadow of the Horns,
Amazing song.
Yeah, amazing song. And I just, tried to do my own kind of take on a kind of a groove like that with Rites of the Masters. And but like you said, visually, I wish that all your listeners and you could see where I live, because I live right next to the mountain in the middle of Ålesund, and all around me I'm surrounded by vast, sea, water. So you kind of feel in touch with nature, but also kind of isolated in a beautiful way. So I am from the capital, and I moved there a couple of years ago, and I won't say more national romantic in a bad sense, but in a good sense, where you feel that you're a part of something bigger and part of something worth protecting, right? When it comes to this war stuff, and just seeing people being happy in the street and amongst the nature, and feeling the connection to something that is not just fucking coffee shops and record stores and concert halls, in the big city, and hoping that this will last. That is, I guess, the take on it.
To be surrounded by nature, I think, is the best for a black metal musician. It's the best that you could have. I
think so. And here, if you ever come to Norway, go to Ålesund, go and walk in the mountains, walk in the forest. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
All Norway is beautiful, in my opinion, from the south to the north. I really have to say this. I never been there, but it's on my plans, of course, to visit Oslo, Helvet, and all the streets, the classic spots of black metal.
Yeah, I used to work in a coffee shop next door to Helvete, which is Neseblod, as it's called now. And I used to work in it's a little coffee shop called Stocknets on the corner. So every lunch break, I used to go over to Neseblod, buy records and T-shirts.
Wow.
It was great. And there's so nice the people working there.
And what is your best memory there?
From Neseblod?
Yeah.
I think my best memory was I was going to buy a Iljarn shirt. I think I ended up buying that fucking Danzig shirt, I think. But I met the Mr. Neseblod, who's I can't remember his name right now, but the guy, super nice guy, is always in the counter. And I didn't know that he was like the vocalist of a band that I listened to called Vaklevørn. So I was telling him about this band, like, dude, have you ever heard this song called Oslo's By? And he was like, yeah, I fucking wrote it, man.
Wow.
I think that was one of my favorite memories from Neseblod. But since the fire, I haven't been there actually. So because it burned, But but I think I have to head back there soon. Yeah, I definitely will. And but Norway is such a, I don't know if you can compare it to any other country because it's so small. It's like everybody knows each other, right? We were with one of my bands. We were playing in Germany, in this little festival. Just little small festival in the middle of Hamburg. And on the airport, on the way back, I bumped into Necrobutcher and Billy Messiah from Mayhem.
Wow.
And I talked to Billy on Facebook, and I met him, on the street before, and he's a nice guy. But then I thought, oh my God, it's fucking Mayhem, And I was wearing a Mayhem hoodie. And I was like, hey man, to Necro, is it possible, just to say hi to you guys and whatever? But yeah, just let me buy this Coca-Cola, and it's I'm a super nice guys. For Norway, it's not like they get like ran after by journalists and photographers and fans, So they're like, they had played Wacken, we had played a tiny festival in Hamburg, and then we meet like ordinary people. Except that I'm a super fan, of course, but it's Norway's that kind of country, which I think is really nice.
So what Necro did say to you, and even Billy?
Necro said, "Cool sweater, dude," which is nice because I was wearing the Death Crush hoodie. And Billy, I actually talked to Billy a couple of days before because I didn't know they were playing Wacken. I should have understood that, but he was saying stranded on Hamburg airport, what to do? And I said, dude, we're like an hour away. I know we've only met once, but come and have a beer. And he said, I couldn't make it. I just got picked up. So stupid me, I didn't understand that he was going to play one of the biggest metal festivals in the world.
Wow.
And I was asking for a beer in a Honkastube, which is like a dirty, smelly bar in Hamburg. But yeah, no, so they were just super nice guys. And I asked them how their festival went, and they said it was great. And they asked me how my festival went, and I said it was okay. So yeah, but I've never met Necrobutcher after that, but it was super nice, yeah.
Amazing memory. I really wish to meet them one day, who knows?
Yeah, I guess if you hang around enough in Lillehammer, you'll meet Messiah. He's always hanging around in Lillehammer. I don't know about Necrobutcher. I've never seen him in the wild, But you meet people like that in Norway. If you know the faces, I think it's easy to go and say hi. I believe we're pretty humble people. Might be standoffish, but if you just come with a smile, then people usually will say hi to you.
Wow.
And have a little chat. So I have only good, a lot of these bands have interchangeable members. So we're playing with, my band now is playing next week with another band called Drittmaskin. And the drummer of Drittmaskin, he is the drummer of Tåke,
Oh, okay.
So it's such a lot of the guys in big bands play in pretty small bands. So, and in 2 weeks' time, we're playing a big, it's the music day in Oslo, where in the capital, where there are bands playing in every venue. And then Anders Odden from Cadaver is playing with some new band that I've never heard of, kind of warming up for us, which I think is insane.
Wow.
So it's super weird, but it's just a lot of small constellations, of Mannevon, who's playing, I think, in Kolbrand and in Jordsjuk and also in Kraft, and also super nice guy, It's a small community, many bands, a few people.
Like a huge family all together, I could say.
Yeah, and I think it's like in any other business. If you're not nice to each other, nobody's gonna want to hang out with you, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a big misconception people have about the black metal. Of course, there are some people that I don't know, and I can't say if they're nice or not. But I believe that most of the people that I've met in the black metal scene is nice people. And So yeah, I could probably tell you, I have a podcast myself here in Norway with a friend of mine called Robert Madsen, and we interview metal bands, like you do.
Yes.
And then you get to know people, right? And you get to see that people are, even though they look scary or whatever, and if they say stuff on record like, I'm gonna kill, give them a beer and have a chat, and they're super nice, right?
At the end, they are all humans. We are all humans, so we act normally to the other people. So I think that this is the most common thing to the end.
Yeah, definitely.
So, have you ever played live in your area? Have you ever had the chance, I was saying, to meet bands, and you told me already, but if you want to answer to this question, if you ever played live in your area?
Yeah, but not with Hatskrømt. I have never played live with this project, but I've played live in this area of Ålesund with my 2 other bands. And that was great. We made a little festival actually here in Ålesund to try to bring metal to the people. And it worked. So, but then again, it's not something you can do every weekend like you can do in Oslo. But here in Ålesund, it's enough with one metal festival each year, I think, and people will come.
And now, black metal is a great way to release negative energy and have a good dose of aggression. How much has black metal helped you deal with life?
Oh, definitely a whole lot. A whole lot. I think that ever since I was a kid, I've been listening to hard rock and whatever. And I have also I had a big stint in hip hop when I was a kid, classical white suburban kid listening to hip hop and thinking it's badass, right? But I grew up listening to Kiss and fucking Def Leppard and stuff like that. And I've always had a urge to make harder music. And I've been, I'm the kind of guy who pretty intense kind of guy, some would say. And some people would say that I'm pretty relaxed, I guess. But I'm getting out a lot of frustration and not anger per se, but a lot of frustration and a lot of things and feelings that you have to lock inside when you're among people. On stage especially. Not that much when I'm screaming in the microphone in the studio. It's not the same. But like to stand in front of a crowd and get to yell and have people responding back. The worst part, I've been playing, I think it was a gig where the people didn't come for us. The people came for the festival just to hang out and drink beers and whatever. And then I felt that it just doesn't work to stand there and scream. You have to scream and then get the response from the audience. So especially playing the harder music, looking somebody in the eye, make a fucking loud noise and make them, I've been swung at, people tried to punch, and people have jumped on stage, people have done crazy stuff on stage. It's fucking great. It's my favorite thing in the world.
And that's awesome. And what was the moment you decided to play black metal or music in general?
Well, that's two different things in my book, because I've always wanted to play music. Started making music when I was 12 years old. And it was shit music, but I started making music when I was 12. And I wanted to play in a rock band since I was 11. I wanted to play with Kiss when I was 11. I wanted to be the vocalist of Kiss when Paul Stanley became too old. But I started listening to black metal not that long ago, actually. I think it was like 2016 or something. It's 9 years ago. I started to really think that, oh shit, this is something that I like. And I started, to try to figure out the voice and whatever, but I really couldn't. So instead of starting a black metal band, I started a punk band, because I thought if I only scream and I can't do like, I can only, then I should start a punk band instead, because people will tolerate that kind of vocal. And I listened to a lot of black metal since then and become more, wanting to be a black metal vocalist, because that is the music that is closest to my heart. So, yeah, I don't know when I started playing black metal. I guess the punk band turned into a metal band, and then I decided I wanted to go deeper into the black metal stuff. And also, I can't really listen to other genres than black metal. I tried, sometimes I like death metal, but I really can't listen to much thrash metal. I fucking can't stand power metal. It has to be black metal or darker. Like raw black metal.
Well, I think thrash metal, there are so many good bands, in thrash metal. I could listen to thrash metal because I'm a huge fan of Sodom, of course.
Yes.
So
I consider Sodom kind of black metal in my book. I know it's not, but I think it's on the way to black metal.
Yeah, at the beginning, yes, when they started with the Victims of Death, Witching Metal, they started these demos. They were very extreme, but then they evolved from Better of Dead until later they evolved into something less extreme in a way.
Yeah, that's true.
So then,
But you enjoy that?
yeah, I enjoy that the In the Sign of Evil, the first EP, and then even the first two demos. Even if I couldn't enjoy in particular the first two demos, because the first two demos are unlistenable in a way because it's a tape recorder. It was bad recorded in a way, so you cannot enjoy the whole music they recorded because you cannot distinguish all the instruments. So it's you have to put a lot of effort to understand what they were doing. So that's the only difficulty that I have. But the rest is awesome.
I think that's kind of a charm that I really like about like bad recordings. I think one of the fun parts is when you can't distinguish in between the instruments and it all becomes like a big mush of noise, and I like noise, as we talked about. And I think that, have you ever heard like the pure fucking Armageddon or whatever, the old Mayhem demo?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
absolutely
it's some trash, but I think it's great in a way, because all you hear is the aggression, right?
Yeah.
You can't really tell what's happening, but you can tell that it's fucking aggressive, and that is what I think that you can't really replicate the second you start to try to play something nice or try to make something clear, to make the drums sound just a little better. You lose some of that primal rage, right?
Yeah, the problem of Pure Fucking Armageddon that I have is that they didn't release Gold track. Gold is awesome as a track. They never recorded. They recorded once with Vic Sovyetna. I think that is the name of the band. But I don't know if it's correct.
Yeah, it's correct. It's great.
Yeah, but it's not the same, They never released it professionally, recorded in a studio, and I think that this is a huge problem. I think that is a pity.
Yeah, and there will always be, that's kind of like the magic and the sad thing about stuff like that. Also, when you lose a member, or when there are people that are instrumental to making that feeling come alive again, and they're not there, it's going to be hard to do it again, I guess. And but have you ever listened to Order? Did you check it out, Mannheim and Messiah's new band?
Absolutely, yes, I know them. Nice. And I, for example, I didn't enjoy, I don't know why, but their first demo was amazing. The song Savage was brilliant. Folly Grander, amazing track, but they did record it on their first album, and I was so shocked. Why?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because they deserve to record that song on a professional studio, because it's amazing, it's like doomish at the beginning, so there is an entire whole energy, so I really like that, but they did record it, I don't know why, but it has been a huge pity for me.
Yeah, okay, I know, I understand, but it's great that you have this passion for this is what me as a Norwegian, I get really happy, right? Because there are people like you out there in the world who are really interested in. I actually got a message from Italy this morning from some guy named Fabio, who was like, "Hey man, can I post your record to YouTube?" I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I don't make any money of it anyway, so it's super nice if you can spread it. Of course, do it. So there are people out there who listens to the music and finds it and finds something that they like in it. And I don't know how many people in Norway who's interested in, listening to new black metal, but there are definitely people out there in the world who, like yourself, and a lot of people in Italy, who's interested in this genre.
Yeah, there are, but the fact about Italy is that we don't have a scene at all. So even if there are few bands, they usually play in north of Italy, because in where I'm living, it's no scene. There are no metal scenes, no metal concerts, and when they do it, it's not commercialized, it's not publicized.
Yeah, I understand. Oh, that's I guess that's the great thing about Norway, or at least for our scene, that in Oslo and other places around Norway, we have a lot of metal festivals, and we do have a lot of smaller metal festivals for smaller bands as well. And Inferno Festival, of course, the biggest one, which is great, and they have the clubs around the Inferno Festival with where smaller bands from all around the world can come and play for a good crowd. So yeah, I guess we're kind of spoiled when it comes to the metal scene, playing live in Norway.
Yeah.
I thought it was good in Italy as well, but that sucks for you guys. That's bad.
We
In Norway,
just
that's
believe this,
good press, you know. In Norway, that would be the best thing happening to a black metal band in the world. If, you know, we dream of people coming to say, don't listen to this, because in Norway we're so secular that it's a laugh, you know. And if you get some kind of media attention, that's fucking great. But I understand that in your country that it might be off-putting.
We arrived at the end of this interview. If you want to add something to say to the public before we end up this interview?
Check out Hatskrømt on fucking Bandcamp or Spotify or whatever you use, and I'll spell it for you because it's in Norwegian. It's Hatsskr, and it's the Ö. It's the O with the fucking slash through it. MT. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's all for this episode of Death Blow Podcast. Subscribe, like and share my episodes and click on the bell to receive more news. Instagram, Facebook and TikTok to more videos and contents. Spotify and Apple Podcast for the audio version to listen to everywhere. See you soon, guys!